continue with the floods in Durban. Surging flood waters have exposed gross inefficiencies in the country's waste management systems. Aside from the debris of damaged buildings and infrastructure, KZN is covered in rubbish. The Waste Management Institute says it's time to review processes and infrastructure. Experts say poor systems lead to blocked drains and clogged drainage channels. They say this made the recent floods even more severe. Let's speak to Brendon Jewaskiewitz from the Institute for Waste Management. Thank you very much, Brendon, for your time here on All Angles. I just want to talk about the fact that, we have seen how the oceans looked last week. They were quite filthy. A lot of the residents were trying to clean up, help operations to clean up around there. This shows that we aren't really managing our waste management in the country, is it?
Sure. Look, at the end of the day, first and foremost, recognizing that this is a humanitarian disaster, and an extreme weather event of epic proportions, and our hearts go out to all of those affected. It does expose glaringly the waste management issues that we have in South Africa. It's a huge socio-economic problem. Most of the waste that ends up in our rivers, in our oceans, washes down to the sea as the result of activities taking place outside the formal waste collection and management system. One of the major problems is a lot of illegal dumping taking place. There's a lot of uncollected refuse, also refuse that hasn't been disposed of properly in various rural and urban areas near watercourses and rivers. A lot of informal settlements exacerbate the problem, particularly near watercourses. And the reality is that once this waste, in the form of various items, plastics mainly, polystyrene, for example, once it ends up in our receiving environment, in our soil, in our water, in our oceans, it becomes very, very difficult to remove. And, just a personal experience, last Friday I was involved in a beach cleanup on Durban's North Beach. And what struck me was how many very small particles of plastic and polystyrene were present in the masses of waste washed up on the beaches. And that just is indicative of an ongoing problem.
This also obviously then makes things worse in terms of, the water and the blocking that it would cause on our drainage systems if there's so much rubbish around.
Yes, that's correct. Besides the fact that there generally appears to be a lack of maintenance when it comes to stormwater management, the presence of all of these foreign materials, which could otherwise be, better used or repurposed, recycled, for example, shouldn't be ending up in these systems. It's a massive issue, and the reality is that people need to be much more aware. We need to increase awareness, education campaigns, for instance, just to ensure that there's a general sort of knowledge that, although waste is an undesirable part of our lives, we want to get rid of it or whatever the case may be, we need to realize that it can actually have a massive impact on us personally and on our families, for instance, if it isn't managed correctly, if we don't dispose of it or treat it correctly. So yes, it is something that needs much more attention. Unfortunately, with our municipalities facing pressing service delivery issues, housing, for example, water supply, electricity, etc., waste doesn't receive the priority status that it really needs to receive. But unfortunately, it ends up coming back to bite us at the end of the day when we have events such as this and all the negative consequences.
Putting it bluntly, Brendon, who then takes responsibility for this? Because as you said, in terms of the informal settlements that you say are mushrooming even more these days, it goes back to the issue of housing. A lot of the maintenance in terms of our drainage system, it goes back to the doors of government. So to put it bluntly, who's to blame?
To be fair, it is actually the responsibility of every single one of us. It's very easy to blame the authorities. Yes, the authorities have a major role to play in terms of service delivery, waste collection systems, landfills, for example, maintaining watercourses, making sure that waste that is supposed to be collected in terms of the Constitution is managed correctly and it stays within the system. It doesn't leak into our natural environment. But by the same token, at the front end of this whole process is every single one of us. We all need to take responsibility for the waste that we produce. Each South African is estimated to be producing on average of something like 2.5 kilograms of waste per day, which equates to an entire football field about 10 meters deep of waste every single day that we are producing as a nation. You know, we have to take responsibility. We have to look at ways in which every single one of us can reduce the amount of waste we produce, how we can reuse what we produce, how we can recycle things like plastics, glass, etc., paper. You know, if we can actually attend to all of those issues on a personal level, an individual level, on a company level, before it gets into the hands of the authorities in terms of their responsibility, you know, we'll make a massive dent into the problem just in the initial, you know, phases of the waste management system. So yes, you know, there is a responsibility that society has to play as well, but the authorities do need to come to the party in terms of improving waste collection, for example, and ensuring that that all of these areas are adequately serviced.
Well, thank you very much for your time here on All Angles. That was Brendon Jewaskiewitz, President of the Institute of Waste Management of Southern Africa.